Well, hello, Oak Grove community. Welcome to week 26 for our morning meeting sessions. And this morning I am thrilled to get right back into Colossians 3 and really a transition point in what Paul is writing about what the identity of the Christian looks like. Up until this time in our memorization, Paul begins in the passage talking a lot about uh, where the focus of the Christian should be, that we should seek the things that are above, that we should set our minds on things that are above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. And then he transitions to talking about what we need to get rid of, what we need to put off, or put to death. In some cases, he says, putting to death the earthly desires, the immorality, impurity, covetousness, idolatry, and anger, rage, malice, slander, all these things that should no longer be a part of our lives. And then there's this beautiful transition that we get to memorize and meditate on this week. And where Paul has been saying, put off, now he's saying, put on. This is what we clothe ourselves with. And so for our talk today, I have themed this message clothed in grace. And that is so essential to understand that concept of grace as expressed in the good news of salvation. If we do not understand grace, then we will not be able to be the people of God that we are called to be. And students, just like every day, you in the morning you get up and you put on your uniform or you put on your clothes for the day, and those clothes are somewhat of a reflection of your identity, whether identity as a student when you're at school, or maybe in your off time or at home, what you like, your favorite colors, all of those things. The clothing that we wear says something about us and about our identity. And so Paul is using that metaphor to talk about what should the Christian be clothed in. And so I want to look at the passage and just a quick review. Always good to review when we're memorizing. If then you've been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth, for you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. Put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you: sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry. On account of these, the wrath of God is coming. In these you too once walked when you were living in them, but now you must put them all away: anger, wrath, malice, slander, and obscene talk from your mouth. Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge after the image of its creator. Here there is not Greek and Jew, circumcised and uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave, free, but Christ is all and in all. So there's the putting off, there's the putting to death. And he's starting to say about what we should put on and who we need to be. And then here's our passage for this week. Put on then, as God's chosen ones, holy and dear and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other as the Lord has forgiven you. So you also must forgive. So there are many things that we could put our attention on with these two verses. But I believe that there are three key ideas, or maybe four key ideas, that I want us to focus on Because if we just focus on, oh, I got to be compassionate, I've got to be kind, I've got to be humble, I've got to be meek, that's the wrong focus. I'll tell you that right now. That will not be how your heart is changed if you focus there. I think we need to focus at the starting point where Paul is here in this section. And so let's break this down a little bit. So he begins with saying, put on then as God's chosen ones. And when I was pondering this passage, I stopped there and I thought, what does it mean to be chosen? I thought back to the day I was married, the day I married my wife on our wedding day, and in our vows, contemplating that my wife chose me to be her husband, that she would choose me of all the other men in the world. And what a wonderful, delightful feeling that is, and how that blesses and touches my heart, and how that moves me to want to love my wife, that she would choose me and pour out her love upon me. I think of friends that choose to spend time with me, that will give of their time just to be with me, to listen to me, to talk to me, to help me. And what that does to our friendship and how that strengthens my bond with them. And so just imagine that the God of the universe, the King of Kings, chose you. If you are a child of God, you are chosen by him to be part of his eternal family. Do not lose or miss the significance of being chosen by God. And consider how wonderful that is. Now let's continue looking at the verse. Put on then as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved. What does it mean to be holy? Literally, to be holy means to be set apart, to be unique, to be considered or set aside or set apart for a special purpose, not ordinary, not like everybody else. A person who is holy, they live a life that is distinct, specific for God's purposes. Living to be like Christ is a holy life because it should be very different from what is normal in the world. I think also of the, being set apart and being chosen, also being like on a sports team. When I take that field, or when you take that field or that court as that team, you are now in a different mindset. You are functioning as part of that team, not just as an individual anymore. And in the same way, when we are part of God's kingdom and part of his family, there should be a completely different mindset than before. And then beloved. And I love this picture. I think of a father and his daughter or son, or a parent and their child. And that child is beloved. They are cherished. That parent is for them, and they want to do everything they can to protect and provide for and encourage and nurture and love that child. And students, your parents, I know they love you so much. That's why they're sending you to this school. That's one of the many ways they show their love for you and their give of their time to you on these home days, and every other day for that matter. It's because you are loved. And so think about, if your parents love you so much and they are imperfect, like all of us, besides Christ, think about how much God truly loves you, that he gave his life, he sacrificed his life on the cross so that you could be with him forever and ever in the fullness of his joy, in the fullness of his love and care. Christian, if you are a Christian, if you have put your faith in Christ, you are beloved and you are welcomed and you are secure. There's one more part I want to focus on for this passage. I'm going to jump ahead actually to the end of these verses. He goes through compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, bearing with one another, And if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other as the Lord has forgiven you. So you also must forgive. We have to understand the grace that we have been given, the forgiveness that we have been given first, so that we are able to forgive others. And so all of these things, and there's a picture here, I hope you can see it, of the prodigal son coming to his father and being embraced and forgiven after his rebellion against him and mocking him. How should that son then go on to someone else who has treated him that way? They should be transformed by the incredible love of their father to be merciful and meek and kind towards others. And that is the big idea, that we are a people, Christians, we are a people that have been chosen, holy, beloved, forgiven. We are clothed in grace. And if we can grasp that aspect of our identity, then actually all these other things will follow. We will naturally be moved to kindness, moved to humility, be patient with others, long suffering, forgiving towards others. That will come as an outworking, as an overflow of a heart that is transformed by grace. Classical students, we cannot be virtuous truly until we have been transformed on the inside first. And then we follow in the steps of Christ to live a life of virtue, live a life of holiness, live a life of wisdom, following in God's steps. Children, talk about this. Students, talk about this with your mom and dad, with your teachers, about how that transformation of life happens. It must be started and fueled and powered by the gospel. Talk about how that works. Talk about how that's worked in your life. Ask your mom and dad, ask your teacher about how that's worked in their life. Have a wonderful week. Thank you.